Hi, everyone. Welcome to Live with BLAYNE J, your weekly connection to people, brands, and businesses. Thank you so much for joining me on a Friday night. Now, if you've watched the show, you know that I am always excited to have anyone on who has either gone to Hampton, graduated from Hampton, any Hampton University connection. I am with it. So I am super, super happy to have Cari Monique. She is the founder of Royale Tea, and she has taken her love of sipping tea and turned it into etiquette workshops, curated boxes, and she has turned it into a whole lifestyle and brand. So we are going to bring her on right now. Hi.
Hi, Blaine. Thank you so much
you?
for having me. I'm well. How are you?
We love our home by the sea. Okay, so you're more than welcome. I'm so happy to have you on. We know each other because we both attended Hampton University at different times. But Rodney, who is the founder and producer of Realish Radio, knows the both of us, and so he connected us and decided that we would be a good fit for each other. So I'm super happy to have you on here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So let's get into tea because I'm not a coffee person. I actually really like tea. And when I have it, I tend to like have it in the morning when I'm by myself, and it like helps me to think. So how did you take what I think is just like me time and turn it into this whole brand and lifestyle with Royale Tea? How did you even get into that?
Yeah, well, I think it is me time, right? So there's a huge movement on self-care. And I always refer to afternoon tea as a form of self-care because it is a time where you take to yourself. The beverages are usually hot. You can have iced tea, but most of the time, if we're thinking about relaxing or even, a caffeine pick me up in the morning, it's hot. And you have to take your time. You can't rush through it. You don't
so you
want
will burn your mouth.
Yeah. You will burn your mouth. Usually don't want to travel with it. You can get the travel cup, but then you have to deal with the bag and everything. It forces you to slow down and it forces you to be intentional. And that's really what I'm looking to just showcase to the world, that it's okay. We're in this digital space where everything is go, go, go. But during the pandemic, we all were forced to stop. And I think it was a good thing. And tea can definitely just be that little reminder, whether it's daily or if you meet up for tea with your girlfriends, to just stop and enjoy the moment.
And so with that being said, you're absolutely right. Like, it makes you stop. You don't want to burn your mouth, but I also like to savor the taste depending on the flavor of the tea. And just like kind of do, like you said, like me time and self-care. So how did that then turn into Royale Tea? What was it about this that you were like, I have to start a company around this?
Yeah. So, in addition to the beverage itself, when someone invites you to a tea, the first thing you're like, what am I going to wear? Right. It's a big thing. It's a very fashionable event. You typically won't go to a tea party in jeans. Most of the time you'll be in a dress or a pantsuit or fascinator and lace gloves. It's a whole production. And so I think just as women in general, we love a great opportunity to get dressed and fellowship. And for me, when I started my passion project or sharing my tea journey, I really was just posting pictures of myself, some of my friends, some of my sorority sisters when we would get together for tea, because the world was locked down and it happened during the peak of tea season. So I just wanted to focus on things that brought me joy, which would be attending these spring tea parties. And so I began to document it on on Instagram, and then eventually Facebook too. And people started to have questions like, okay, well, where did you get your hat? And what is the hat called? And if I go to tea, what do I do? So I think people really think about afternoon tea or high tea in the same way they think about a formal 5-star dinner. It can be intimidating. So I started to receive all these questions, and I'm like, wow, there's a need here. Maybe I should put together some workshops and, put together some fast facts or a how-to when you are invited over to tea. And it just kind of took off. People began to request speaking engagements. They began to request products. Everything was pretty much word of mouth. I didn't do like a ton of marketing because, again, I was just posting pictures with me and my friends online. So it's really fascinating the way that things can develop when you just focus on things that bring you joy or your passion. So
now I have to back it up because I am one of those people that has that question when I hear a tea party.
yeah.
That's something that is always like, okay, I'm picturing small sandwiches. I'm picturing being hungry because I'm like, they don't feed you. I don't think they feed you. We're not going to have like chicken and rice and stuff. So I'm
Yes.
picturing like little sandwiches and different kinds of tea. So let's back it up. Like you said, you give tips about exactly what afternoon tea is. So can you kind of tell us what it is? Because I think we all have some kind of like image and idea in our head.
Yeah. So afternoon tea, there's so many different types of tea, but the tea that we're most familiar with is an afternoon tea. We sometimes refer to it as a high tea as well. It's usually when you see the 3 tiers, it has the small sandwiches that you almost always see, a cucumber sandwich or some type of smoked salmon, something that could be a little more substantial. And then there are scones. And there's also on the 3rd tier, there are sweets. So it could be anything from chocolate covered strawberries, torts, cookies, tea, biscuits, just the whole gamut. And when you think about it, and especially in our community, the first thing, are you going to have some real food?
That's why I said, I think about it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to go hungry and I'm going to leave hungry.
I have never left hungry ever because you're
Oh.
drinking tea. So you're getting full off of, you probably have 1 or 2 cups of tea. And it's carb city because you have the scones. The scones are usually like this big. And then with the scones, there are different preserves and jellies and creams that you use with the scones. The sandwiches, yes, they're bite-sized, but you almost always have 3 to 4 different sandwiches to choose from. And then by the time I get to that 3rd tier with the sweets, I am stuffed. And I feel like it's done that way on purpose because we want to watch our figure. You know, we don't need to eat a whole tray of sweets. So it is really, when afternoon tea was born in 1840, it was a meal to carry you over before you have dinner in the evening. So it's not really a full dinner. I know we all love like baby shower meatballs. This is just light fare, so you can be able to engage in meaningful conversation. Most of the items are bite-sized. That way you can pop it in and have a conversation. You don't have food in your mouth. It's not a big sandwich where you're taking a big bite. It is really encouraging conversation amongst friends.
And I actually just learned something you said about the 3 tiers, which I never paid attention to. So you are supposed to start at the bottom, I guess, with the sandwiches and then work your way up.
Definitely.
So is that bad etiquette if you go directly for the sweets or the scones before you do? Because there's a whole kind of system around tea. We got into right now exactly what it is. So we painted that picture for everyone. And then there's a whole etiquette around it. So if you are invited to tea, so let's start from, okay, we know what it is, right? Okay. So we know we're going to be full, hopefully. You get there. Let's go to the what you need to wear, and then let's go to the etiquette portion of it, because I probably would go for the sweets before I would go for the sandwich, and that might not be right.
Right. So you get an invitation to an afternoon tea and it's indoors. So if it's indoors, you typically can wear a dress or a pantsuit. There are tea length dresses that are just above the ankle. They allow you to wear like cute little socks or stockings. And then you can wear gloves if you choose to. And then a fascinator. Fascinators are perfect for indoor tea parties. I know sometimes we see the big, beautiful brim hats. Those are typically reserved for garden parties when you're outside to block the sun. And
interesting.
So talk about that. Yeah, but it really is for the sun. And when you're indoors, just think about if you're at like a luncheon style where there's round tables with 8 individuals at the table. Someone in front of you has that big hat on. You are missing the entire event, right? And so etiquette is not really about, being so buttoned up. It's always about making sure that the people around you are comfortable and you're being mindful of how your actions affect other people. So the attire, again, fascinator lace gloves or satin gloves, a dress. Pearls are always great, not required, but I just love it. I feel like they make, the outfit more polished, but you can jazz it up. It doesn't have to be like a Victorian high neck You can pretty much wear any type of dress that you want and add your own fashion and flavor to it. And so as far as the etiquette with the tiers, it's a lot of controversy in the tea community depending on how the tea is served. If you're in someone's home, Blaine, no one's going to say, why did you eat the, aqua tort before you had the sandwich? It's all really just trying to tease your palate. And then also, you're drinking tea. Most of the tea has some type of health benefits with digestion. So the trays are in a way where you're starting out with something savory and then working your way up to something sweet. So the controversy with the scones, it depends on, say, for example, if you go to a tea house where they have a tea butler and they serve the scones to you warm, that is usually the only time where you will have the scones first because you want to enjoy them while they are warm, especially if it's a savory scone. Some scones have like ham and cheese, and you're going to want to enjoy that right away. And then you can go into the sandwiches and then move into either some sweet scones or to the top tier of the desserts.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is a whole culture. That's what I just heard you say. This is a whole culture and a whole thing, because I think, if we go to a tea party, first of all, it sounds like it's really nice to get invited to one. And then it's like, okay, I'm here. Now I have to dress a certain way to kind of, go with the theme of things. I have to know my warm scones versus my not warm scones versus the different tiers. And that's what you do. That's what your company does as well. You equip people with this information so that we don't go in there and just start grabbing things. And then what happens? Like, we're at this tea party. Let's take us through this tea party, and then let's get into your company and why it's so important what you're doing for people who want to go to these events.
Yeah, so the tea is the star of the show. You can simply invite someone over into your living room and have tea with them. Usually if it's like a fundraiser for whether it's a church group or, a cotillion prep, or even for sorority, there is usually some type of agenda. There is sometimes a fashion show. There may be a guest speaker. So you just kind of think about the tea as in place of like the luncheon. So the tea should be complete. Your food and everything that you're eating should be done before the main event happens, whether it's a silent auction, a keynote speaker, a fashion show. You don't want to have the clanking of the tea cups and the spoon and the sugar bowl. You don't want all of that going on while someone is presenting or providing the information that may be beneficial to you.
That's a really good point, actually. There was a comment saying that they're learning a lot, because I'm learning a lot too. I feel like, the biggest thing that I think about when I go to tea is like, what am I going to wear? And then I get there and it's just like, okay, like I did the hardest part, which is what to wear. But the hardest part actually sounds like, all right, you made it there. And now there's like a whole etiquette behind it. So tell us more about Black Royale Tea, your company, and everything that you do. You curate boxes, you give these wonderful tips and etiquette classes to people who are going to tea parties. You host workshops virtually right now. Tell us all that you're doing with that.
Okay, yes, thank you. So I do the workshops, and they could be for either nonprofit or corporations. And typically I talk about the history of afternoon tea. I really focus on afternoon tea in the African American community and culture. So I take it back through, from starting from slavery through the Harlem Renaissance. So that's what the workshops are focused on. If I'm doing more of an etiquette-based workshop, it's really contingent on the audience. Like I have one coming up with a group of 8-year-old little girls. So, we'll focus a lot on how to properly hold a teacup and is the pinky up or is the pinky down? So we'll talk about those things in the etiquette workshops. And then also, because I am doing most of these events virtually, a lot of people don't have like stuff in their house to have a tea party. So I have put together a kit or afternoon tea in a box, which pretty much has everything except for the food. So you'll have a teacup and a saucer, a 2-tiered serving tray, and there's also a fascinators, a pair of gloves, and then I will feature a Black-owned business that has a tea company. So it creates an experience. So yes, you can learn about tea, but it's very hands-on, where you can have some takeaways, and also have, a little gift that you will remember. Like, this is the first, time I learned that, you can't put milk and lemon in a tea. So I think.
Why not? Is I know why is it bad?
Well, it's not bad, but the acid in the lemon will cause the milk to curdle. So you'll see it like
Ah,
separating. It can get sour on your stomach. So there's some teas that are better with milk and sugar. There's some teas that are better with honey and lemon. It really just depends on the beverage. But that's a conversation for another day, because we can talk all day long about all the different type of teas, their
mhm,
the strands, the soil that they were uh,
mhm.
grown in, and then like all of the add-ins that you can do to enhance that beverage.
I'm like I am learning so much from this. Seriously, like I'm listening to you and I'm just like, wow, when I go have tea, I'm gonna look at it totally different. Although I'm not gonna have it at a tea party, I'm gonna have it, right in the kitchen. So
Yeah.
it's whatever. But what you're saying applies to a lot. It applies to whether you're having it in your kitchen and you want to hold your cup a certain way. If you decide for your friends you want to go to a tea party and have it in your house or have it somewhere, you can kind of create this whole experience around that and around the different snacks that you mentioned. So what are you trying to do with Black Royale Tea? You're basically trying to bring, I don't want to say this is awareness, but kind of introduce this, it sounds like, to different groups of people who wouldn't know about afternoon tea, and kind of introduce it as something to do instead of going to a bar, instead of going out to a
Definitely.
restaurant. You have this option now. That's what it sounds like.
Definitely. And I think when people think about afternoon tea, especially in our community, they think it's not for them. They think that, it is um, like a big culture over in London, or you have to be a part of some social economic group to
Mm.
have tea. And so I want to bring afternoon tea to the everyday person, that it's for everyone. It is something that is viewed as luxury, but we all deserve luxury. So whether
Mhm.
it's exposing that to little girls so they can have that exposure early on, or even women that, they are moving up in their careers and they are getting invited to these different events, and they didn't grow up around it, so they may not know. But I want that woman and that little girl to know that it is for you too. It's not for a select group of people.
Mhm. And I kind of want to go back to something that you said. You were into this and you took this as like a hobby, and then you just
Mhm.
started posting about it. And I was telling you before, like, word of mouth is so underrated, because
Yeah.
everything that you have been doing and you becoming like a content creator in this field has really been you just sharing stuff and people liking it and spreading the word. So I think that needs to be said, and that's amazing within itself, because you're like self-made for the most part. But how does that feel to know that like this hobby that you thought was a great idea has now blown up into something even more?
Initially, I'll be honest, it was pretty intimidating.
Mm.
I'm like, why would people want to hear from me? I'm just posting about a dress on Instagram. And I never realized that even if you don't feel like it's valuable information, people may need to hear what you have to say. And it could be anything from you just sharing your passion, sharing something about your journey or your personal life. Um, you just never know how your words can impact people in a positive way. And so I had to get in the mindset that it's not really about, um, you know, having the perfect tagline or the perfect caption. Like, just allowing yourself to be vulnerable and sharing yourself with the world,
Mhm.
and people may see value in that, and they want to receive or see more from you. And I had to get comfortable with it fast, but I will definitely say I'm still growing and learning, and it's been an amazing opportunity. I don't know if I would have been able to create this space on my own, or even be
Mhm.
welcome into the tea community as welcomed as I have been. So I would say it started out to be intimidating, and each day I have been embracing this new space, and I'm evolving as a person every day. And I'm just grateful that people continue to extend grace to me in that way.
That's amazing. And that's very, very true. And so there's a burning question that I have. How
Okay.
do you hold a teacup? What is the proper way to hold it? Does the pinky go up?
I have one right here. So the proper way, there's usually a teacup and a saucer. You actually have that pinky tucked. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Delta. It is the proper way.
I'm going to have it up, but yeah.
I know. So you actually tuck it, and then you have the saucer there with you, and then you enjoy the beverage this way. Sometimes tea is hot, it's filled to the brim, and if it spills, it's going to spill in a saucer, not on the white linen on the table, and then not on your dress. And then we just tuck the teacup because usually we tuck our pinky rather. The teacups are curved for tea. Usually it's more bold when it's a coffee cup. And so our finger just naturally rests there, and it prevents you from touching any of the outside, so you won't burn your fingers. So back when people started using the porcelain or ceramic teacups, they did not have handles. And so that's why they would hold it with the tips of their fingers, and their pinky would stay up so it wouldn't get burned. So it was functional. It looks cute, but it's very functional. Yes.
There's a whole culture behind this. Like it just everything you're saying as you're talking, I didn't know about the pinky. I don't know. I drink out of mugs. So I'm just, picking it up, and it's however I hold it is how I hold it. But this goes beyond just like tea. These are actually everything you're saying. I'm like, you could utilize this if you're out at a restaurant. You could utilize this if you're, on a business event or something. It goes beyond just drinking tea.
It does. And you'll notice, like, when you are comfortable with etiquette, whether it's for tea or fine dining, people will study you at the table. And even if they don't know your background, they're like,
where she learned that at? Where she had good manners.
So you'll look around and everyone will be holding their cup the same way. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even have to say anything, but you model that because once you do it, you're like, this makes sense. Why haven't I done this before? So it looks like it's prim and proper, but it's almost always functional. It's always a reason behind it.
What has been your favorite part about this so far?
Just all of the amazing people that I've met along the way. I didn't realize there was a huge tea community, especially a huge African-American tea community. And I feel like every day I meet someone new that has started their own tea line, or, they have sent some samples of some honey and they just want to get my opinion on it. I think it's bizarre, but I love it. Like, wow, you care what I think about your honey? This is amazing. And then also just everything that I've learned, like I'm still learning every day. Anytime I go live, there's a comment and a question, and I'm like, that's a really good question. I need to do some research on that. So just being a lifelong scholar, I think that tea challenges me in that space because it's always something more to learn. And then the people, it's all about the connections that I've made. We keep saying word of mouth, but word of mouth doesn't happen unless you're connecting with people. And I think that's important because you can post, you can have 1,000 bots that interact, but you don't have any genuine engagement with those individuals. So just the people that I've met along the way, like sometimes we'll, text each other randomly. And I'm like, wow, these are like my friends. These are like my tea friends. And that's what I refer to them to, as tea friends. So I love just expanding my network in that way.
It's funny that you said those are your tea friends because there was a comment from Dawn Kelly. She said, I love tea. And Dawn is a former guest of the show. And most of the time in the morning when I'm up making my tea, she's the person that I wind up calling because I know she's the only other one who's starting their day at 6 something in the morning. And so we'll both be like, oh, we're making tea. And then we're going to talk to each other and we're going to kind of like get our day started talking to each other on a positive note as we're sipping our tea and stuff like that over the phone. So when you said that, it's funny because when her comment came up and she is like my tea buddy, I guess, my morning tea buddy, to get things going. So although Rodney put it on the screen, can you let people know where they can find you if they want workshops, more etiquette tips? I feel like you need to give a whole seminar on the history of tea and tea parties, because I'm sorry, before you put your information up, as I'm talking, the whole history and etiquette and everything behind tea, the question that I did have is like, what is it about getting dressed up that is a big deal? Because, I get the whole, you hold the cup a certain way, you want to eat stuff. Is it just for like ambiance purposes, or is there a history behind getting dressed up and wearing the fascinator to socialize and have tea?
Yeah, it's definitely a history behind getting dressed up and the fascinators and even the gloves. So when afternoon tea was born in the 1840s over in Bedford, there was a duchess who um, sh- she was having some issues with like really wanting to find like a substantial snack, I'll say. During that time frame, oil lamps were like all the rage because they didn't have electricity. So since they started to use the oil lamps, they had candlelight dinners, and their dinners got pushed back from around 6 to like 8 o'clock. And they only ate around, I want to say like twice a day. So there was like a late breakfast, and then there was like an earlier dinner. And so she wanted something in the in between time, and she had one of the staff prepare her a Earl sandwich, which was just like butter on bread and a cup of tea. And so her friends heard about this. She started doing this every day at 2 o'clock. And they were like, well, can we come over and have tea? And during that time, women got dressed every day. And they wore these big, long Victorian dresses. They had the high collars, they had pearls, they wore the hats or the fascinators. Their hair was almost always covered. And they wore these long opera length gloves. That was the fashion of the time. And so she started to invite certain individuals over for tea. Then it became like a huge event where if someone invited you into the home for tea, it spoke to your social status. So people would put on their best clothes because they're like, oh, we're going to the Duchess house for tea. And it turned into like a fashion event. So like people would come like decked out in furs and all of this stuff. And so that was over in England. So you cross the pond over in the United States. During that time, unfortunately, it's part of our history. Slavery was going on in that time. Slave owners, they began to have tea parties in their home and invite the governors and individuals over. And so the enslaved individuals that worked in the home, they wore similar long Victorian style dresses. And they did not typically, I'll just say work. They didn't work on Sunday, but their Sunday best would be the fascinators, the gloves. That's why a lot of times still in Black churches, you see the women wearing those hats. This all came from that same period because that was your Sunday's best. So either someone's inviting you into their home or you're going to church. And so that has just kind of been stapled into the foundation of tea parties because that was the attire at the time. So it's pretty much just like holding on to that history, and it has so many different, it started overseas and then it came here. And then in our community, we still wear the hats because, everybody has a grandmother or aunt or someone that tells you like what you should be wearing to church if you're a religious type. And that's kind of where it stems from, that you want to show up as your best person because it was, important to be invited into someone's home or to go to a worship service. So that's where the dresses, the fascinators, and the gloves stemmed from.
You need to come back and for like another hour and talk about everything that you're saying, because as you're saying stuff, I'm just like the comment on the screen, I don't know if you can see it, says this is so interesting. Everything you say, I'm looking at tea totally different. There's a place, I'm in New York, there's a place in Manhattan, and that's what they do is they do like tea parties and stuff.
Right.
And I'm always kind of like, whatever, but now I feel like I should go because I feel like I'm more knowledgeable and equipped to kind of go in there and be like, oh yes, I'm here for tea. I know about the 3 layers. I know why I'm dressed the way I'm dressed. Like it's a whole culture and lifestyle behind it, which is what Black Royale Tea is about, which is your company. And so now I'm like, I got to get you to do a workshop. I got to get you to to talk more about this. But tell people where they can find you, because I'm pretty sure that I am not the only one that feels this way. So definitely tell us where. Oh, I thought about opening. A friend, Dawn Kelly, she said she thought about opening a tea cafe. She wound up opening a juice bar, but she thought about opening a tea cafe, which is really not a bad idea. People go to not tea cafes. People go to coffee shops and, they go there for their quiet time. They go there to slow sip. They go there to kind of get away from things. So That's a bad idea. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I am on IG as Black Royale Tea, and
Mm-hmm.
Royals with the E. And then also Facebook, Black Royale Tea, and then on the website, www.blackroyaltea.com.
And on the website, they can book workshops with you. Can they find tips and some of the history that you said to us, or do they have to talk to you in person for that?
Yes, I do have some videos that I've uploaded about
Mm-hmm.
different teas that preparing for different teas, because I remember I was saying earlier that there are different types. There's afternoon tea, low tea, high tea, strawberry tea, a royal tea. That's where I got the name from. And I talk about like the different teas on there. There's some videos you can view. My contact information is available for booking as well on the website.
There's a question. Do you travel for events? I guess now, not because of COVID, right? But
I have traveled for a few events, and definitely open to travel, but it just depends on what's going on, variants and things of that nature. I primarily have done virtual, but I have also traveled for events in the past too.
Okay. So what makes a good tea? Because I'm thinking of what I drink. And right now, you probably heard of the brand Harney and Sons. Yeah, I like Harney and Sons because they have such a wide variety of teas. But I don't even know if that's like, now I'm talking to you, I'm like, I don't know, you're the tea expert. So what makes a tea good? Because I kind of go off of, like in the evening, I tend to have like a green tea because I feel like the black tea is a little bit heavier and I don't want that at night. So what makes like a good tea versus like just a whatever tea?
It's all about the experience that you are attempting to create. So there are good English black teas that are like high in caffeine that could be a substitute for coffee that you have in the morning. Green tea does have pretty much a lot of caffeine in it too, but it is lighter. So if you don't want, because black tea can have that boldness, almost like an earthy coffee type of flavor. Green tea is usually more crisp and light. So it really just depends. And then you have the herbal teas. That's a whole nother like beast in itself. And then, if you're looking to, like today, I have a ginger tea just because it's really good for the digestive system. I use it as a transition tea. So when I get done with work, I'm no longer drinking like the caffeinated tea. I want something that's like smooth and mellow. So I would utilize that type of tea, which is like a ginger mango tea. So you can have the fruit infused teas, which are really good amongst like children. And then there are I prefer loose leaf tea that are whole leaf. So you can actually see the tea in your infuser versus the tea in the bag that's kind of crushed up. That's usually more commercial and has like been through a lot of process. The tea bag may have chemicals, but it's not going to kill you. We ingest way more dangerous things, but I do prefer to have more of that loose whole leaf tea. And then also the quality of the tea has a lot to do with how you brew it. And that's another workshop. Like I won't go into it, but like the temperatures vary. How long you steep the tea really can alter the taste. You can scorch the tea. I'm like, have you ever tasted some tea that was kind of burnt? It probably steeped too long at too high of a temperature. So I feel like any tea could be a good tea, but it just depends on what you are looking to accomplish. You may drink a tea that doesn't taste that great, but it has amazing health benefits. So it really just depends.
There is a question. Do you make your own blends?
I do not. So I purposely, I like make my own blends for like my family, but I don't make blends that I sell because I purposely want to continue to engage the tea community so I can share these stories. So in my box, I partner with Black owned businesses from all over the US and I feature those companies. So they have sources from small farms in Kenya. They source locally. We have some that source from Jamaica. It just really depends. But I think we have some that source from like a small remote island in Sri Lanka. It really depends on the vendor. But I do intensive research to make sure that most of the teas are single sourced from a particular region that's going to be able to produce a high quality tea. So you know, anybody can go to order some herbs off Amazon and put some stuff together, not knocking anything with Amazon, but I am looking for ones that are sourced from like local owned farms.
That's amazing. That's like, you have to come back, because I feel like that every time you answer a question, you just say like 10 more things that I'm like, wow, I didn't think about that. And I didn't know that. So what you're doing is really just like awesome. And you just answered, there was a question, where do you source from? But you just answered, you source from Black owned companies, you source from several different countries and islands, it sounds like. And this is all available in your Black Royale Tea box that you have for anybody that wants tea in a box, right?
Yes. You also can visit on my Instagram. If you go to the, I think it's IGTV slide, if you slide over from the main page to the IGT side, I do have a series called Tea Boss, where I interview these tea companies and they share all of the information about their tea. And I'll do a live review as well and give my feedback about how I feel like it tastes and in the different notes and how it smells.
That's so awesome. I'm going to check it out, and I'll try to highlight some of them on my stories as well after I check it out, because I think that's just so awesome. We're going to get ready to wrap it up, because if not, I'm going to have you on here for the whole Friday night, because every time, like I said, every time you say something, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Tell me more. And I'm glad that everybody else is enjoying all the information that you are dropping, all the knowledge that you are dropping. So if you want to talk to Cari Monique, you can find her on Instagram, on Facebook, reach out to her for a box. Your boxes there are curated specifically for people, or are they kind of just a general box? They're curated, right?
It's a general box that comes out once a year in the spring. And then when I host the workshops, I will curate an individual box for that particular group.
Okay. So if anybody's looking for her boxes, they come out. So they're super exclusive, because they only come out every so often. So if you like a workshop, if you want a box, if you want an afternoon tea party, which now I feel like I have to do.
You have to do it.
I have to, because I know so much now. Like now I'm gonna be so snobby at these things, right? Because before I would come in, I'm like, I got dressed, I did most of it, it's all good. But now I know how to hold a cup. I know why I'm dressed up. I know about the layers. I'm not going to just go for the scone and the sweet stuff. I'm ready to go to one. If anybody wants to come, I think we should do one.
Awesome.
But before we go, please feel free to give any thank yous or shout outs or anything that you want to do for yourself, for your tea company while you're on here.
Yes, I just want to encourage, if you are not following my Instagram, please visit Black Royale Tea. And also visit the website, blackroyaltea.com, and send me a DM. I will chat with you about tea, answer any questions that you have. Obviously, I could talk about it all day long. And I am just so grateful for this opportunity. I want to thank you and Rodney for having me today.
Well, I have to thank you, and I have to thank Rodney as well. And again, this is like the perfect example of when we say a Hampton connection and Hamptonian love and our home by the sea, because we all went to the same school. I didn't know you in Hampton, but Rodney knew you and I know him, and he connected us. So it's just, not to say other people don't have their school pride, but it's something about going to Hampton that, once you tell a person that you went there, you graduated, you attended, whatever, it's all love. It's like, oh, cool. Like, we're family.
We're family.
So,
yep.
Yes, we're family. That's just what it is. We have a lot of Hampton pride. And so I'm so happy that you were able to come on here, and I'm glad that Rodney connected us, and you are welcome to come on here any other time, which I think you need to, because there's so much more that we didn't cover. Because every time you said something, I was like, that's a whole nother hour conversation that we can get into, especially the history of tea. That's like so interesting, and why people get dressed up. That is a whole live within itself. So I want to thank you for being on here. Of course, Rodney, the founder and producer of Realish Radio, for connecting us. Everybody for tuning in. Follow Black Royale Tea, DM Cari Monique for any questions that you have. Go to an afternoon tea. I feel like we all need to plan some type of big virtual afternoon Zoom tea or something. Maybe I'll try to set that up for everybody on here, so that we can have this amazing experience. So thank you for tuning in and starting your Friday night out with us. I'm going to ask you to hold on for 1 second while Rodney takes us out of here. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I will see you next week.
I am excited to talk to my ladies primarily. And guys, if you want to be here with me, hang out. I want to welcome you into my space, my world, my thoughts, and I want to share them with you. And I hope that it inspires someone. It brings about some transformation.
See the struggle to get in line. Hustle from the bottom because I'm a don't lie. 3